that's all good. I mean, my slight worry about that, and even I mentioned the Duke of Edinburgh, is that I felt there were certain opportunities during this Jubilee to sort of present a sense of the country going forward, whereas they seem to be very content to anchor everything to do with, if you like, to some degree, the past.
It was quite middle of the road, wasn't it?
It was middle of the road, and there was a sense, if you like, that Britain's future is in the past. And this would have been They mentioned like the Duke of Edinburgh has done many things to bridge cultures, to do with the Commonwealth, as the Queen has done, and I thought it would have been a great moment in terms of anchoring them to the future. To have had something like, almost like, say, an amnesty for Commonwealth immigrants who have been here a certain time without British passports, that would have to be done through Parliament, but that kind of a thing.
Victoria's Golden Jubilee, they released 100 debtors from prison. I think, as Duran says, I think we saw a lot about young people, very young people, children. I don't think we saw many actual of the British young people, the youth who are increasingly dispossessed, the unemployed, the people who in this country are increasingly the most disadvantaged. And I don't think we saw very much of them in the same level. And I think we did see it. There was a lot of invoking of Britain, but it wasn't as if. In Victoria's Jubilee, there was 40,000 people, poorest people in London were given a big Jubilee lunch. We didn't have that type of day. It wasn't a great charitable institution. What's
interesting, actually, I was in Tottenham today talking to young people, and there wasn't that sense of connection there. There was lots of people very scared about the future, about unemployment, about cuts. And what's interesting...
yes, you can't help us with those.
Well, no, but there's a potential crisis, I suppose, for the future of the monarchy. In that poll, there was a poll, for example, in April, which suggested that the vast majority of people over 65 who obviously lived through the entire reign of Queen Elizabeth II are very supportive. They don't think Britain would be better off without a monarchy. Amongst people who are 18 to 25, however, only a third think Britain will be worse off. So the challenge facing the monarchy, it'll be interesting to see if they can pull this off, is how they can get the next generation to get the same level of enthusiasm which they don't have at the moment.
I would also say that I think the challenge facing Britain internationally is to become a country whose successful films aren't merely films that are period pieces, etc., where Shakespeare isn't the only great thing that this country has done. Britain has shown that it's world-class in this Jubilee days. It's world-class with its past. And it has to show that it's world-class in various areas to do with the future as well. And I felt that there was a chance, given how multicultural Britain is, there was a chance to push that more, in a sense, towards the future.
It's not just about multiculturalism.
It's not just multicultural,
it's about modernity.
Yeah, it's about modernity, absolutely. It's about modernity more generally, and it seems to me sometimes that official Britain, the establishment, the powers that be, they're not really proud about that aspect of Britain.
I think what the royal family themselves, their way of doing this is by continually invoking William and Kate. I mean, we saw the Queen's speech earlier. William and Kate, the engagement photo behind them, they were on the balcony. But as we say, there are younger people here who are more dispossessed. And I think
William will probably be 60 before he's king.
Well, I mean, we'll absolutely see what happens.
Well, the polls suggest actually more people would support actually skipping Charles and going to Prince William.
Which is never going to happen.
Let's just ask you this, though. I mean, the opposition to the royal family has been very muted in these last 4 days. The Republican protests didn't really make themselves very, very felt. You know, there were no big stunts that took over or anything like that. And I wonder why that is. Are we just less angry?
Nor should there be. I mean, it's interesting. The polls suggest about between a fifth and a quarter of the population. It fluctuates a bit. Support having a say over who leads them, but it should never be personal. There's always this sense that it's a personal vendetta against who happens to rule. It's just a democratic argument that some people in this country think that people should have a say via the ballot box who represents them.
But the Queen went to Parliament today. There weren't any Republican protesters at Parliament.
But I do think it can be personal, because a lot of the Republicans I've spoken to, they've said, well, I believe that the Queen is doing a good job, but I just don't believe that Prince Charles can do the same thing. And I think throughout our history there have been massive swings on the Republican swingometer, as you might say. Sometimes we are, after the death of Diana, the level of people in this country who are actively anti the monarchy or just wished were indifferent was very high, and now it's declined. And to an extent it is the Queen, I think, and there is an idea that she's given long service and they support her. What's going to happen when Charles becomes king, I think it's going to be quite different.
Well, absolutely.
I'll just say that I think more generally, I think we live in quite conformist times, quite small C conservative times.
People.
And we have been for a long time. And to be honest, one of the things is that it's so expensive to live in this country. There isn't all that much time. And people are going through very difficult economic times. There isn't all that much time to sort of be radical in a certain way. I think a certain kind of politics and radicalism has been dying for a long time. It's looked every now and again as if it's been revived slightly, as it has been, for example, with anger against the bankers, etc. But we're fundamentally in quite a conservative 20-year
So it's not
period.
that there's less to get angry about, it's that we as a population are just less radical.
No, I don't think that's true. I think there's simply people prioritise, don't they? I think at the moment bread and butter issues matter to people. It's to do with public services, to do do with jobs, it's to do with declining living standards. So to start making an argument, picking your battles, if you like, about the elected head of state gets pushed down the agenda at a time like that. But it's still an argument worth making, even though it's deeply often very unpopular.
Well, you've got a few years to plan the next campaign, I guess. Thank you all very much indeed for joining us.